Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. The great Lonnie Poindexter is with us this particular evening. Christian conservative commentator extraordinaire that he is. Ladies and gentlemen, there is much ado about something going on in Washington, D.C. tonight. And Benedict Arnold has left his black robe at the Supreme Court this evening. His name is Neil Gorsuch. And Neil Gorsuch decided to read something into the 1964 Civil Rights Act. You know, the Civil Rights Act that said he would have black people. Lyndon B. Johnson said he'd have black people voting Democrat for the next 200 years.
For 200 years.
That's right. And apparently, Neil Gorsuch was able to read into the minds of the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of 1964 that they intended that the term sex, which normally means biological male and female, and was intended to mean sexual orientation, heterosexual, homosexual, deer and antelope if you get an opportunity. So apparently, based on that, we now have a situation where nonprofits, churches, may have to hire transgendered homosexuals and lesbians. Otherwise, they will be considered discriminating against that particular group of people. First and foremost, I want to give Lonnie Poindexter this great opportunity to tell everybody what he thinks of Neil Gorsuch.
Well, I got to tell you that being that I know you're a Christian and I try to uphold the Christian values, so I don't want to say anything that I got to go back and repent to opponents for. Maybe when we talk offline, I can tell you. I'll give your listenership enough to know where I stand on this. You know, the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, this is not the first time that they've thrown Common Sense America under the bus. We know they did that back when we had a supposed conservative Supreme Court and when they voted concerning abortion. So you're dealing with people and you're dealing with, you just don't know what's going to happen. This is part and parcel to why the faith-based community, and in particular the faith-based leadership in the faith-based community, needs to stand up and speak truth. So it appears to me, Ken, that these knuckleheads are beholden to the pressure coming from outside of the Supreme Court in the mainstream media and other places with things that they are putting forth. I think the only one we got in there that's a road dog with us is the Justice Thomas, and thank God for him. But it should let your listenership know and Common Sense America know what we are dealing with in terms of what's happening there with the individuals that get placed, and why it's so very important that you have leadership in the White House that can help to steer things in a way that we can get more individuals that have the common sense that we have to stand for us. And when we don't have that we have the Huelos, the Canolas, I'm trying to stay Christian here. Say have the titanium click-clacking ability, if you get my drift, to stand up and speak truth against what's taking place there. I was disappointed. I'm not surprised based on the fact that the Supreme Court actually, how they ratified not traditional marriage, but this atypical form of marriage with the homosexual community. Now, let me ask you this, Ken.
Yeah.
Why is it that a percentage of the community that best guesstimates are somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3% has such power and sway over the rest of America that everybody just kind of bows down and allows them to do whatever the heck they want to do?
Well, I believe that, number one, they got a lot of money. They got a lot of money. I remember listening to Rush Limbaugh once saying the most powerful lobbying group in Washington is not Wall Street. It's not, your corporations. The most powerful lobbying group in America is the LGBTQ. And when you look at the alphabet people and how entrenched they are, not only in Hollywood, because that's an easy one, but at DuPont Circle and K Street in Washington, D.C., how entrenched they are in New York City, how entrenched they are in Atlanta, in Chicago, in Dallas, San Francisco. They have such tentacles
Yes.
that they can touch everything at the same time, including Black Lives Matter and Antifa. They are the most dominant terrorist group, in my opinion, in America, because they're after everything that the Marxists are after. They're after our Christianity. They're after traditional family. They're after the Constitution. They're after all of those particular things. And if they get enough opportunity, they will change the Constitution without blinking an eye.
They certainly will. And I'll give you a shining example of the power that they have, that even the mayor of our beautiful city, Washington, D.C., is intimidated by them, in that when during this COVID bamboozlement, and you had folks in DuPont Circle hanging out, doing the bar scene and so forth, she didn't go after them, but she went after the black folk over on that side of town about them congregating, not wearing the mask, no so forth kind of thing. I said, look at this. I said, so if you happen to roll that way, there's just a fear factor, and I'm amazed by that, because you hear anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5%. So even if it's 5%, that's not the majority of the population that rolls that way, and why they have so much power. But money talks, and they have tons of money, and they apply it in ways to keep their thumb on us or their boots on our neck.
I want to say this to the American people, because some of us are so short of memory, that it was just a few years ago that California voted against gay marriage.
Proposition 8.
That's right. And with Proposition 8, it seemed that, hey, America was keeping the framework of the Constitution, and then they went to the courts. And all of a sudden, those black robes, the regiments that were supposed to uphold the Constitution, began to rewrite the Constitution right between our eyes and right before our eyes as well. And all of a sudden, gay marriage became a legal consort. And so I want you to understand tonight that unlike conservatives, we win a case and then we just break open a champagne bottle and then go about our lives. No, the LGBTQ are taking names and they're taking numbers. And tonight they're going after Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh, who criticized Gorsuch in saying that there was no there. He has no strength of argument that's exactly what Congress meant in 1964. And in addition to that, that Gorsuch was operating outside of the powers vested in him as a Supreme Court justice. His job is not to create law. His job is to adjudicate law. And so right now the target is on Kavanaugh, the target is on Thomas, and the target is on Alito. And so I got to ask you here, if the Republicans are so satisfied with this decision by Gorsuch and Roberts, are they willing to make certain that the next appointee to the U.S. Constitution is as liberal possibly as I forget her name. Her name just escaped me. Oh my God! But one of the women on the Supreme Court right now who is considered the most liberal.
Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit, kid, so I wasn't able to catch everything that you said. But we said to make sure that the next appointment has to be a solid conservative that will uphold the values that we hold near and dear, uphold the Constitution. It's important. And ladies and gentlemen, you need to listen to what Ken is saying, in that if you think that you have little input as to who is chosen and so forth, let me explain something to you. They do pay attention. They are watching social media. They are watching which way the nation is leaning. So the more noise you make, it lets the President of the United States understand, and it gives him the chutzpah, if you will, to make the proper choice, because he knows he's got the nation backing him. So we need to make sure that we have somebody put in place. This is just ridiculous.
Exactly, because the only thing that President Trump basically texted today or tweeted our way is smoking of is that he considered it a powerful ruling.
Yes.
That's a man who understands right now that the Republicans have turned against him. The Democrats are already against him. The Marxists are coming for him. And the only group that has a solid fit right now for him is the conservative movement. And so he's beginning to feel the pressure of Washington in terms of their exuding their dictatorial power from the swamp. What say you, sir?
Oh, did I lose you?
Yeah, I think you lost me. Are you here?
Oh,
there we go. So, sir, I commend you for saying what you did regarding the fact that the people of Washington have forgotten the people of America, and that the people of America have a great influence on Donald Trump, and need to send a message to him right away that Gorsuch is no longer considered a true originalist, a true constructionist, and is a danger to our society. I want to ask you very quickly, he's going to be speaking on the 20th of this month instead of Juneteenth in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I want to ask you, what was the dust up all about that? What was wrong with him speaking on the 19th of this month?
Do not get me started on him. I mean, him speaking of that, I commend them for having the huevos to want to stand up and do it, but you know they're going to spin this thing in, and you got those that, how can I put this? You got the left putting on kente cloth and kneeling down in the Capitol Rotunda to make some kind of statement of black unity, which firmly ticked off the folks from Africa. If you follow some of the postings from those who are actually from Ghana, where the kente cloth comes from, it's akin to putting an American flag around your neck and making some kind of political statement that you really don't believe in, because you're not even understanding what the flag even means. And so here we have today. I would rather our president be the bombastic, and I call him the brash New Yorker for a reason, and continue to put forth good policy and making overtures to try to reach out to the black community with Juneteenth to show loyalty. I think it's a swing and a miss, quite frankly. I think his policies show that he's been more firmly black-oriented in terms of the plight of black people than any president that I can think of, at least in modern history. If you look at the Opportunity Zones, you look at the First Step Act, you think of the money that he set aside and held for HBCUs, a loan forgiveness for HBCUs, all these things you and I both know about, and I know your listenership knows as well. Mainstream media ignores it. No other president has done that, certainly not Chocolate Jesus, who was in office for 8 years prior to him. And so I think he just needs to stand on his policies and he's good to go, because they're going to take him taking a stance at Juneteenth, and they're just going to, well, you know what they're going to do.
I know. I just want to tell everybody what Juneteenth is. And this is not Lonnie speaking. This is Kevin McClinton speaking. Let me give you the historical black background of Juneteenth. Juneteenth happened in Texas when the general came to Galveston and told the African-American, Negro, colored, black persons of color to get off the plantation, go get a job, because this is over. Slavery's over. And quite frankly, I don't understand how they did not know when just a few blocks over in Arkansas, black people were walking around free. I'm just saying, there was a need for a news media back then that black people didn't have. And apparently, we needed a whole new paper being read to us and tell us to get off the plantation. But there's another plantation that we need to get off of, and it's called the Democrat Marxist plantation. Am I right about that, sir?
Preach. Here we are in 2020, and I'm still trying to get this information out.
I want to ask you tonight because there have been a number of cases regarding police brutality, and so it's been very easy for people to align with the Marxists and say that we need to defund, we need to abolish, we need to get rid of the police. And many police are waking up this particular morning knowing that their city council and their mayor and their governor have turned their backs on them and are working to disband them as quickly as they can. Sir, what say you to the millennials out here uh, who have decided, Marxism is cool?
Yeah, they need to pick up a history book and learn about Marxism, especially having to be a millennial that has a darker paint job and see how fair, how well we did under Marxist regimes. It's akin to seeing a young black male wearing a Che Guevara shirt. He's down with the people, not fully understanding that Che Guevara was a racist, number one, and number two, he was a flaming socialist, leading to a communist and a fascist, and what he did to people once he came to power. We've got a real education problem in this nation. I was talking with a good friend of mine, Pastor Mark Lowell, about this, and how, what do we need to do to get the truth out? Because, as I travel through D.C., and I know you do as well, all the buildings, the ones that are boarded up, all have posters and placards speaking to Black Lives Matter and all that other foolishness. And if you say anything against Black Lives Matter, you're considered a bigot. And I don't know how I can be a bigot because I have the darker paint job, but they say I'm a bigot as well. But when you search the history out, or it's not even history, just do a cursory look into Black Lives Matter, the founders of the organization and what they stand for, and you'll find that they are anti-American, they are anti-male, they have a completely different agenda, yet they have turned into this force to be reckoned with. And you got corporations, Bank of America's talking about giving $1 billion toward, black outreach, and did it with systemic racism in America. I go, wait a minute, last time I checked, we had a president who did 8 years in the White House with an African name. You have black police chiefs, black female police chiefs throughout the nation. Seattle, Washington is a perfect example. The mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, the mayor of Washington, D.C., who's playing Black Lives Matter right on 16th Street leading up to the White House because she's vying for a vice presidential slot with crazy Uncle Joe Biden. And so what you and I and others who have our worldview have to do is continue to speak the truth. But I got to tell you something. I mean, some nights I get pretty pessimistic. I said, well, at the end of the day, either God's going to move on our behalf in this, or these knuckleheads are going to drive this nation straight down the drain.
Yeah. And I was speaking earlier, it's very disconcerting, very disappointing when you look contextually at the fact that people said to us that education was our way out of poverty, and yet the education that most people have received have led us into a poverty mindset where we accept Marxism and socialism and communism as the ways of separation and liberation. And actually, we've done more with capitalism and conservatism and constitutionalism and individual sovereignty, and by the way, Christianity, than any other philosophies of thought have ever done. And so I get in trouble for saying this a lot because I don't like to hang around bougie people, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. But there are a lot of people who have accepted the leftist teachings as if they are true. And let me give you the example of it where W.E.B. Du Bois basically stated that there is a talented tenth and that the top 10 people will lead the worst of the black people, the 90%, out of poverty by getting an education that was built on the framework of social work and social sciences. and yet those people are unemployed right now because nobody needs a social science. They need a scientist. I want to get your thoughts in terms of that, sir.
I love that you remind me of the next door neighbor I grew up next door to, who I've talked about often on my show. His name was Bill Freeman, and he and his wife broke the color line in the community where I grew up, which allowed my parents to buy their dream home and other folks with a darker paint job back in the 60s. And he was a garbage man and a diesel mechanic. So that whole talented 10th from W.B. Du Bois, or Du Bois, how do you pronounce his name, who, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, was a flaming communist. And at the end of his life, at a pessimistic life at the end, you need to follow Booker T. Washington, ladies and gentlemen. And here's interesting, Ken, is that W.B. Du Bois, if you walk up 7th Street to the Hall of Portraiture, they got all kind of placards and stuff in dedication to him. He was a flaming socialist and a communist. About the talented 10th. Mr. Freeman was a garbage man, ladies and gentlemen, and he was a diesel mechanic. He had 2 full-time jobs at the same time. He had 3 daughters, which he put through college, and he had the wherewithal to see that he could attain with his wife when it was the home that she fell in love with. She said, "Oh, Bill, I want that home," and he went about finding a way to make sure that he made his wife's dream come true on her purchasing that home. This is in the early 60s, ladies and gentlemen. And right next door to that home, which they purchased, my parents bought their dream home. So my parents would not have been able to buy their dream home if someone had not had the Wavels to stand up and says, "I'm going to find a way." There were no special government programs. There was no affirmative action. There was none of that. This was a black man, a basic black man who was very wise, and he found a way. And it speaks to the American experience in our nation. America is a nation of overcomers. I don't care what color or persuasion they are, but in particular, for folks who have a darker paint job, in spite of what obstacles were put in our path, we overcame anyway because of the grace of God and favor, and looking to him as our support and for opening doors for us.
I want to get you to talk real quick because we're going to run out of time, and I really appreciate you coming on tonight. Hopefully it's not the last time, as many people are commenting that it's been years since you've been on the show. But Hattie McDaniels was the first black woman to receive an Oscar for her role as maid to Clark Gable, Brett Butler, in the Gone with the Wind movie. And now Netflix has changed its mind after many conservatives like myself criticized their decision not to show Gone with the Wind anymore. Now they're going to show Gone with the Wind, but they're going to be a 30-minute preceding show to it to talk about all of the problems with Gone with the Wind. I want to ask you, because a lot of bougie black people don't like the fact that Hattie McDaniels won the Oscar. They would have preferred someone like Sidney Poitier or someone else winning the Oscar first. Why was it important for Hattie to win that Oscar? And why are Black Lives Matter oriented bougie black Marxists looking down on Hattie McDaniels?
Preach, brother. You just touched on something near and dear to my heart. The best way I can put it is this. These are the same fools that want to rewrite the Yosemite Sam and Bugs Bunny cartoons because Yosemite Sam.
Oh, he was about to bust open, and where are we? We're missing you, Lonnie. Just when we were about to bust open right there, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we just lost Lonnie. Let's try to get Lonnie back real quick. There we go. There we go. We're going to try once more to get...
Hello?
There you go, Lonnie. How you doing, brother?
Hey, there we go. Hey,
all right.
I was on one, so the minions thought they would cut me off. Let me just stay here. The best way I can put that is I was a Bugs Bunny fan back in the day in Warner Brothers. And today what we have is they are rewriting carried a rifle. And when it was rabbit hunting season, or as he would say, rabbit hunting season, they thought that was off-putting, so they've rewritten the cartoon so you will not see Elmer J. Fun with a rifle. And I think that really speaks to what you were talking about, how we have lost our cotton-picking minds, and common sense America needs to stand up and speak up against this foolishness.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, Lonnie Poindexter, Bonnie Williams says hello to you. I know you may not remember Bonnie.
I remember Bonnie, gorgeous Bonnie, yes. I was well.
But everyone's saying hello to you, sir. Dave Milner says hello. Everyone welcomes you.
Brother Dave, yes.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight and for your message to the millennials out there that have egregiously embraced Marxism out of their foolishness. And you know the sad thing is, Lonnie, in closing here, is they never get to be our age at their age.
Yes.
They never get to see what we've seen.
Exactly.
And so all of our foolishness in telling people that capitalism worked, that God so loved the world that he forgave everyone, including white people, so they're not irredeemable, including white people. So, I mean, that Christianity works, that capitalism works, that constitutionalism works when you don't have a Neil Gorsuch, that, you know, that individual sovereignty. All of these things work. What doesn't work is when you are sitting around waiting to get something that you feel owed you and not willing to work for it. In closing, go right ahead, Lonnie. Close out with us tonight.
The only thing I can say is amen on what you just stated. And if you look back historically, and in particular for folks with a darker paint job, you will understand that the capitalist mindset, and it's the economic system that most closely identifies with a Judeo-Christian ethic and experience, is the best option that we have as Americans for success. And it's the reason why Americans with a darker paint job were able to succeed in spite of the agenda that was against us because of those who have not a problem with us because of the color of our skin. And if we move from that, we end up like Venezuela, Cuba, and many other nations across this nation, including China, ladies and gentlemen, who have a different worldview, and people suffer because of it.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, my very good friend, Lonnie Poindexter. God bless you, sir, in your journey. We look forward to you coming back on the network on our show very soon, sir.
Amen. God bless you. And be sure to catch me on CureAmerica.news, CureAmerica.news, a new television show and network that I'm working with Star Parker on. God bless you.
God bless you, sir. CureAmerica.news. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, Lonnie Poindexter. We love that man and appreciate him. Take care, Matt. And we really appreciate him coming on the air tonight. There is a message that needs to be given soundly to those who follow behind us. You know, when you are young and you think that you read all the books, you know, I just want you all to know War and Peace was written well before you actually achieved the ability to attend a college. You know, Nietzsche wrote well before you. Freud wrote well before you. Einstein wrote well before you. So let me just ensure you that you're not smarter than your parents. You may know more than they, but you're not smarter than your parents. And your parents had parents who went through a Great Depression and fought a war against a real fascist, Hitler, and fought a war against real communists, the Russians, and fought a war against real imperialists, Japan. And you know what? They came back home and made America the greatest nation ever. And they paid down all of the debt that was owed as a result of the wars that we faced. I'm just telling you all, ladies and gentlemen, that while you have sat in the classrooms of America and you feel that you have receive your just due for your intellectual prowess and your ability to write an essay 3 days before it's due. I want to explain to you that Big Mama knows a little bit more about life than you do. And if you're not willing to sit down at Big Mama's feet, you'll never be able to stand upon the towers of wisdom that prevail across our land. I want to tell you one quick story before we go to the break. There was a black woman who served as a maid, virtual maid, to a HBCU in Alabama. And that black woman showed up for work every single day, even when her kids were sick. She showed up for work every single day and took care of all of the kids that were in the dormitory that she had to take care of. And if you ladies been in that dormitory before, you know that toilet paper is a crucial commodity. She took care of them, she cleaned them, she bathed them when they came home drunk with vomit all over their bodies. She took care of them. And on the last day of her work, she had worked at the school for 40 years. She went into the administrator's office, the dean of the school, and he was about to throw her a party to celebrate her 40 years with the school. And she said, "No, that's not really necessary, sir. You don't have to do that. I just wanted to leave you with this before I left." And he was like, "Oh, she must have written me a letter of thanks for being at the school. I'll read this at the party." He went to the party and he opened the letter. The letter was not a letter of thanksgiving for having the job. The letter was a check for $1 million. You see, over the years, she saved that money year after year, and she put money away, and she invested money, and she didn't get a new car, and she didn't get a mink stove when all her girlfriends had mink stoves. And she put that money aside because she knew how much the kids needed that money at the school that they attended. And his jaw dropped, because she happened to be the person who gave the most money to the school in its history, even though the school had many individuals that later went on to great successes, great fame, great fortune, great name. It was a little maid who saved $1 million to give to a historically black college or university. So the next time you behemoths of bougie look down upon a janitor or maid, think this thing through. It was that maid or that janitor who was a deacon at his church, who loved the Lord with all of his heart, who practiced capitalism by investing over time, who believed in the Constitution so much that he served his country in the war and came back home to be a janitor, that practiced individual sovereignty. He didn't ask for nothing, and nobody had to give him nothing. He woke up every morning and he shined his shoes and he went off to work. And yes, he was a conservative. He was a man who believed that he was with sin, that he was fallible, but he served a God who was infallible, who forgave him of his sins, even though he didn't deserve it, as any other man would be. You see, before you look down on somebody, remember, while you're looking down, it was their sacrifice that lifted you up in the first place. We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, right after this.